So, Bob, start with Taz. I mean, he was obviously very good last year, but seemingly has taken another major jump ahead. Why and what's he doing better now?
Well, I think a year ago our team was pretty much dominated with Deuce and Derek, and most of the really when we needed a basket, it was one of those two. And he had a great summer. He had a phenomenal summer. I mean, he didn't go home, stayed here, was in the gym every day, worked really hard. One of the guys smart enough to hang out with the older guys, in the gym to see how they worked and what they'd learned by a lot of them going and playing professionally overseas. I think it really helped him.
He put his name in, had conversations about not taking that extra year. So, what were your conversations like with him about that?
Honestly, didn't really say all that much. Just you got a chance to have a heck of a year. You have a chance to come back and be the guy. And the reality is, you're not going to get drafted. You're not on any draft board. So why wouldn't you come back and have a heck of a year and see if you can do it next year?
What's next for him as a player, in your opinion? What's he got to expand on?
John, I tell you, he has made so many strides. I mean, he reminds me a lot of like Steve Logan. He's bigger and he's more athletic than Lowe was, but just a great knack of getting himself free to get a jump shot. He's got to be one of the better players in our league, if not in the top two or three.
What makes him so good around the rim? I know you mentioned his feet. Is that what it is? His feet?
He's got great feet. He's got great feet, and he's really worked hard at it. The thing you learn from the older guys is that you don't have to dribble between your legs 65 times. And you if you really want to be a good scorer, you got to be versatile. And you watch KJ come and work out, and he takes a lot of jump shots, but then he does all of his post stuff. And if you, as Tariq and Tavon and Alex and so forth and so on, they all keep coming in with their workouts. Taz was a great student.
You mentioned something the other day. That he's kind of an inside-out guy. He starts inside, then works his way out. Is that? I guess it's common for scorers, right?
What, from a workout standpoint?
Yeah, from a workout perspective. He starts close and then works his way out, even pregame.
It's kind of old school.
Yeah.
That's what.
I mean, you see a lot of guys today that are out there jacking threes, the whole practice or whatnot.
Yeah, the vast majority of them.
Yeah.
But I think that's been something that has been around for a long time. You start close and you gradually work your way back.
What do you see from Kent State? I assume you sort of gave him yesterday off, just starting sort of the scout and stuff with them today.
Yeah. Well, I watched a couple games over the last couple days. They're good. They've got 5 seniors. Sincere has really made a huge difference in their team. I mean, he's a guy who can score it from anywhere. Somebody that you've got to pay attention to. He's gonna make shots, and Seen the kid since he was, I think he was at Solon, but watching him play, in the Cleveland area when he was a high school player, and he always made shots. He was hurt a lot. Actually had a bad knee deal, but he's really come back. The other guard's very good. He's shooting in the mid-40s from three. That's hard to do. And left-handed, which kind of gives him a little bit of an advantage at times. And then they're big across the front line. They're big and athletic across the front line.
What's your 4-year transfers? I guess you got two ways of going about it. You can transfer up or transfer down. It seems like they've got a lot of, I'm looking here, they got Power 5 guys from Vanderbilt, Georgia, also got UNLV, Rhode Island, of course, Sears from Duquesne. So they've kind of built their roster with transfers, which is the way a lot of these guys are doing it now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's smart to do. I think after you sit on the bench for a while, everybody wants to be in a Power 5 conference, play on TV, have Dick Vitale call a game and so forth and so on. And the reality is you got to be pretty good to play at that level. And a lot of guys find out that it's not as easy as what they think it is. And a lot of them go home. They go home, they play against other guys. They're like, man, I could be really good at this level. And so they transfer. I don't want to say down. That's probably not the right way to say it. But they go to where they're gonna. It's hard to score if you can't get shots. And you take a guy that's playing at one level and you move him. I can't say it any different than move them down, and they're going to get more shots. You don't have near the size and the athleticism.
This team's missed 20 free throws this year for the year. I guess keep them off the line. They got, I think, the best free throws.
I believe they're leading the country.
Right.
Yeah. That's hard for us to do. That's going to take a lot of willpower.
And obviously for you guys, have you considered maybe having Junius go out and bless the rims?
I saw Junius play. No. I actually played with Junius. Absolutely not.
So it wasn't divine then?
It didn't work for him if it was.
Coach, you're obviously, you've got new guys on the team this year. A lot of them are older. I mean, your average age is probably maybe the oldest it's been in a while as far as overall for the team. So, you're coming off a big win. This is probably maybe different, I guess, in the sense, like if your team was younger, you would kind of worry about them getting too high off of a big win. I'm wondering if this is maybe not that same type of concern with this team. I'm wondering.
You worry about it anytime. I mean, how many guys do we really have that played like we take 2-game swings and say we play at TCU and win, and then we go to Texas Tech? You better be ready to play. And we don't have a lot of guys that have gone through that. A lot of guys, like you said, they're older, but they didn't play at this level. That I think there's obviously there's a difference with the competition, but it's you play in Dallas and then you take the bus back, you go to sleep, you wake up, you take the bus back to the plane, and you get on the plane and you fly to Lubbock. And then they start you at 9 o'clock at night. You get done about 2 o'clock in the morning our time and arrive back here just in time for breakfast. So it's a little different.
Obviously, you're looking forward to that.
Oh, I can't wait.
It's already in the back of your mind.
I can't wait.
Curious, when you were at Cincinnati and you had, I'm thinking of the teams with Logan where he did a lot of the scoring, or when you had Danny Fortson, he did a lot of the scoring. How did you manage your other guys to get those points that you needed from the other guys to get you where you needed to be?
Lowe outscored, I want to say 4 or 5 teams himself. So he was never a concern. He was going to get his. But our guys were good. Emmanuel McElroy was a heck of a player. Mac's still playing. Wasn't a great shooter, but he was a heck of a player. Terrific athlete. And I mean, we had other guys. I mean, we had Lenny Stokes was good. Lenny Stokes had a heck of a career. Lenny Stokes had a great career in the D League. Almost made an NBA roster several times. It wasn't just Lowe scored a lot of points, but it wasn't just Lowe. Donald Little, man, I'd love to have Donald Little today.
I was going to say, how do you get it out of this? How do you transfer it to this team with what you've got besides those? How do you get what you need to get out of them? At least to the point where you can say, well, okay, I can expect this, this, and this going into a game.
I think we're getting better.
Okay.
I think when we started the season, we had no one who could score with their back to the basket. Paulie has worked really hard, and Paulie is very capable now of scoring with his back to the basket. Actually scored with his back to the basket against Connecticut and their bigs. I mean, so we have somebody now. I mean, I wish we had a few more. We've got guys with size, but I mean, I think if DC would put a little bit more time in, he's a skilled guy. He just is not. He doesn't understand. He doesn't sit down. He doesn't understand how important a really strong base is, and so when you stand up like that, you're apt to get moved, particularly down there. We just got to get more guys like Paulie that they can't move.
It's getting better, though, right?
He's getting better. I mean, the rest of them, I can't honestly tell you I think they're getting better at that. Now, they're getting better, yes. They're getting better at other things, but they're not getting better at that.
Is he close to being Big 12 ready?
Do we have a choice?
A couple more games to go before.
I think physically he's without a question. We just don't have. I mean, he's 6'6". He's not 6'8". He's 6'6". And that's not that you can't do it. I mean, there's other people that have done it in this league, but from what I've watched, K-State's big. TCU is bigger than they've ever been with Jamie, I think. You look around, obviously Kansas is big. The team that's not the biggest, but they are the most athletic, is Oklahoma State. They're really athletic, but they don't have that big size presence. So we'll figure it out. I mean, the ideal thing is try to get those guys away from the basket. But I'm not sure we can do that right now either. But we're going to continue to work on it. We will get better at it.
But with your offense, where everyone touches it and passing, cutting, it's not like you just have one guy standing up top that kind of runs everything. So everyone's passing and moving. Does it concern you at all that, your point guards, your shooting guards are the leading assist guys? Gabe is up there on assists. You haven't really gotten that assist numbers from the point guards, which I don't, maybe traditionally might, be a worry, but considering that everyone's kind of running and moving around out there, I don't know. I'm wondering how much of a concern that actually would be with the way you guys are running your offense.
Well, I missed that. I missed that we were moving, running around. I mean, I'm not sure at what point in time that happened. If you could tell me, I'd like to watch it. But We don't run. We don't run offense. If you would go back and look at the Final Four team, for example, they ran five-man motion about as well as anybody can run it, and they knew when to back screen, they knew when to curl, they knew when to fade, they knew when to reject it, they knew when to, I mean, today I say, how about rejecting the screen? Just reject it. We may have two guys run down there. I mean, we're guarding each other basically, because they just don't understand. I mean, they can go out there 5-on-0, and if you say curl it or reject it or slip it or they know to do it that way, but they don't know how to do it when there's people guarding them, when there's 10 people out there opposed to 4. That whole part whole deal is that's really good stuff 5-on-0. When you start going 5-on-5, and particularly when people have scouted you and see what you're going to do and so forth and so on, it becomes a little more difficult. But we haven't given up on it by any stretch, but we're really not running it. I mean, we're trying to get basically Taz and Sean shots.
How long does it take with your offense for being with you for your point guards to really be able to run the offense? I mean, you right now don't have guys as point guards who have been here any amount of time.
No, it takes a while. I mean, Bob, that's why we're running that. I'm laying there in bed one night thinking about how can we get people out of the way, just get them out of the way, and that's when I started running that 3-man stack stuff with Malik, because it gives him a straighter line to the goal, and you're spreading everybody with those 3 guys. Those 3 guys can all make shots. I mean, Taz, Sean, and JB can all make shots. You got to guard them all. So now that spreads everybody out and gives him a chance to do his thing one-on-one. And when the big tries to come and help, then he's got to make a good decision and a good pass to our big. But we've made them play us one-on-one instead of all the help and everything that happens. I mean, when you're playing 5-man motion, unless you're good, I mean, you think about what happened. As I go back and I think about the Kentucky game, Wellington Smith made 2 threes. When Wellington Smith makes 2 threes, all of a sudden their big can't stand in front of the rim. And he made 2 threes early. Joe Mazzulla made some threes. They weren't guarding Joe.
I was gonna say Joe made a lot of layups in that game.
Joe made layups after he made the 3 in front of their bench.
Right.
So I mean, you got to get them spread.
You're saying there's room for a lot of growth even as this season goes on.
Oh yeah, I think we'll continue to grow through the conference tournament and the NCAA tournament.
Well, for instance, like early in the UConn game, it might have been the first possession or maybe the second possession. You run the screen and roll with Kedrine and Cottrell, and Cottrell ends up getting a dunk out of it. And obviously Kedrine gets the assist, and that's his only assist of that game, and it's 2 minutes in. So, I mean, is it because he's not passing the ball well, or is it the differences in the offense, or?
Kedrine's smart enough to know who to throw it to. The ball's got to be in Sean and Taz's hands. I mean, not exclusively, but we've got to get them the ball. We've got to get them in the ball in an area where they can score. I mean, who do you want shooting the ball? One of those two or somebody else? And our guys know that. I mean, our guys know that. Our guys, you can say whatever you want to say about them, but they do want to win. And so they're going to do what they think they can do to help us win.
Do Jalen and Isaiah have to step up their game?
Jalen's got to be more assertive. I mean, yeah, it'd be great if they both did. Isaiah's just not. He's not physical enough yet. I mean, think back. He makes a great cut, catches the ball, runs into a guy. The guy don't move, and it knocks him back 3 steps. It should have been a travel, or it should have been a foul, probably. It's either a foul or a travel, but it's not nothing. And then he shoots an air ball from 6 feet. He's just not. He's not as physical as what you need to be at this level yet. Now he will be. I don't have any doubt whatsoever that he will be, and he wants to be. But you know, I think sometimes people think they're helping guys when they take a 6'11" guy and they let him run around and shoot threes. Well, the reality of it is, if you run around and shoot a bunch of threes, you better make them. You know, who shoots the highest percentage? The guys closer to the rim. And not that he has to play, you know, exclusively there. He doesn't. But he has to be a presence there. So, you know, hey, he can be on a perimeter 75% of the time, as long as he's making shots. If he's making shots, that big then has to leave from in front of the rim and go out there with him, which was my point with Wellington Smith. You know, Wells put an enormous amount of work in after Christmas. I mean, that's, I think, when he decided I'm going to be a player, and he really worked hard at it. And took the hitch out of his shot, didn't have it back over his head, elbow under the ball. I mean, everything was textbook, and consequently, he started making shots. And when he started making shots, now all of a sudden they couldn't take their big and stand him in front of the rim. Why was 5-man motion so good with those guys? Several reasons, but one, you had to guard them all. Well, they could all make shots, and so you had to guard them. You couldn't just lay in a lane and wait on them. You had to chase them. You know, they could all pass. That's a key thing when you're running any kind of motion offense. You have to be able to pass the ball. And so when a guy puts his hand here, you're supposed to hit him in his hand over here. You're not supposed to throw it on this side. You know, and those guys were very good at it, very skilled at it, and got better and better and better as time went on.
Like when you had when you have a like Javon, ball dominant guy who can make decisions, make the good decision. Offensively, is that different than what you're doing now, or I mean?
Think about this. JC steals the ball against Virginia. We're up 3, 4, 5, I don't know. He comes in, instead of scoring the ball, he throws it behind his back to them. They go back, hit a 3. We cough it up. They hit another 3 or 2 or whatever, and all of a sudden they took over the game. We lose the game in the Garden. You know what happened to JC, right? Yeah, he didn't see the floor after that. You know, I mean, it's they have to understand it's not about them. It's about us. It's not about them. And JC learned it. It was a hard way to learn it. But you know, the great thing is JC's dad was like, I wouldn't play him the next game if I were you. You know, I mean, he was a guy who understood basketball and understood that, you know, you don't do that. You know, you don't do that, particularly in those situations. I mean, that's a game that could have really moved us up, you know, in terms of national recognition and everything else, and you don't do that.
Do you use film from the Final 14?
No, not really.
You guys, I mean,
No, I think they get tired of hearing about it and seeing it, honestly. I mean, not from us, but just from other people, you know. Honestly, Bob, it was the same way at Cincinnati. Those guys didn't want didn't want to see it, hear about it. I mean, Danny Fortson didn't want to hear about Corey Blunt. Now, as he grew older, he came to appreciate Corey, and when he went to the NBA, Corey did a great job of helping him, as all of our guys have done. But it's when you come in and you've been the guy for so long, and then all of a sudden, yeah, you're not the guy anymore, or you come in and you think you're going to the playground and you're going to get the ball every time, and then you come in and you play with the older guys and you never touch the ball, and then you bitch and they say if you want it, go get it off the glass like you're supposed to. Different deal.
Okay, then going back to what we started on, Taz came in here that way, and averaged 3 points his first year here. I mean, and not only wasn't the guy wasn't on the floor as much as certainly he wanted to. He handled it though.
He paid his dues. He certainly paid his dues, and there's a lot to be said for coming out and practicing against those guys every day. You learn a lot.
Curious, I got to ask you this before you go. You mentioned on your post-game show you thought the 1-3-1 can help you. What leads you to believe that you got the guys that can do it, at least a version that you're going to run this year, whenever you need it for a change-up?
Well, I think we've got enough length we can do it. Our problem is going to be rebounding the ball.
But doesn't that have a component of it though? That's the issue with it.
Well, if we can get DC to be Devin Ebanks, that will help tremendously, because Devin, when the ball was shot, turned and headed right at the rim, and rebounded a bunch of balls from the top position. DC to this point turns around and looks. He's got a pretty good view from out there.
Yeah. I mean, at the minimum, I know I read something that Hurley said. He said, I watched 5 tapes of these guys and never showed it. So obviously it got him off guard. Now every team that you play is going to have to spend at least a little bit of time doing that in their day, in their prep. So there's value in that too, I guess, right?
Yeah, but we've played point drop not very well, but we've played point drop. I mean, they probably saw us play point drop. We've played a little bit of zone. We haven't played a lot. We've pressed a little bit, not a lot. I mean, we have, I think, historically played a bunch of stuff just to make people spend time guarding it. Now, obviously, they're going to guard our bread and butter. I mean, they're going to look at that harder than everything else. But the more time they take away from the other preparation, the better off we are.
So it's worth continuing to pursue a little bit, I guess, time.
Oh, I think there's a lot of things we can pursue. I've got a list of about 8 things that we've ran over the years that are pretty good. We just have, but you can't just do that. If I spent all my time doing, say, 4 defenses or 5 defenses, none of them would be worth anything.
Bob, question on a sad note. Obviously, 2 losses in people you dealt with over the years, and Herb Jones and Russell Chapman. Just your memories and reflections on them.
Well, I've said this many times. Herb Jones is the guy who was responsible for bringing Cincinnati basketball back to national prominence. He's probably the best. It's hard loved the city, and the city loved him, but he's responsible. I say this all the time, and I know it irritates them, but it's the truth. They took all of our basketball money. They took all the Loach money. They took all of our NCAA money, and they put it in football, which has turned out great. I mean, I'm not complaining about that. But how about, say, just once, thank people like Herb Jones. Thank the people who made Cincinnati nationally relevant again. And then after Herb came Corey and Nick and and those guys. And And they deserve a lot of credit. They get none. Herb Jones, they didn't put in the Hall of Fame till they found out he was dying. Now, how do you not put that dude in the Hall of Fame? You know, the lack of appreciation for what those guys meant to that university it's sickening. Because they put the place on the map again. And you know, it went through an unbelievable glory period with Oscar and Twyman, and you know, that whole crew. When Gail was there, they were really good, and then they really fell off, like big time fell off, like jumped off the cliff, fell off, and those guys brought it back. I mean, those guys were the guys that and you know, when you go through whatever it was, 10 years, 12 years, whatever, of every time the door opened, there were 13,176 in the building. You're paying a lot of bills. And I think whatever there was, 24 loges, and they're all sold out. Waiting list to get them. That's, you gotta say something nice about them.
Russell, when you remember it.
Russell's a great teammate. Russell's a great hard worker. You know, Russell didn't play in high school. He was on team. He didn't play. I went to junior college and got better and better. And he was a guy that, I mean, you know, I knew I always had a shooting partner after practice because Russell was going to stay. Russell was going to stay and shoot the ball and shoot the ball and shoot the ball. And he was a really good shooter. He became a really good shooter. You know, he's a great story. He's a guy who really came in from nothing as a player, you know, to continue to get better and better and better and better until, you know, he was really a good player. He was probably, Tony was really, really good. I mean, Tony doesn't get the credit here that he deserves. I mean, he was a heck of a player. But Russell was the guy you throw the ball to, he was going to make it probably. He didn't miss a lot of shots. And loved the game. Absolutely loved the game. Loved the game, loved West Virginia, loved the university. Watched every game. He'd call me after games. You know, hey, why did so and so do this, or why did they do that? I don't know. You know, he watched and dissected every single game that we played. He's a mountaineer.
Can I ask you this is a serious question, I guess. How can you expect to win in the long run over this year if you don't rebound well and don't shoot free throws well?
Well, we're gonna put an enormous amount of time in shooting free throws. They're supposed to make 100 before they leave, and they obviously haven't been doing that. I don't blame them. Well, they wouldn't have any dinner. I mean, if that was the case, but no, we're gonna keep working at it. You know, I think probably you spend a little bit more time with technique. Rebounding the ball, Bob, is. We have from those front line guys very little physicality, and if you're going to be a really good rebounding team, no matter what anybody tells you, you better be physical. It's physical down there, and we have to this point avoided some sort of physicality at all costs. You know. Well, Coach, no, you didn't either. You know. 74% of missed shots rebound opposite. Probably ought to be opposite. And if you're opposite and inside, you got a heck of a chance. And we've got to continue to drill it and drill it and drill it and drill it. It's been. You have to try to get ready to play because we were going to play some pretty good people early, so you have to try to get ready to play and have some sort of offense and get better defensively, and we've had a lot of things to fix because of the influx of freshmen and transfers, but so has everybody else. So we've got some time now, I think, where we can spend more time, and hopefully we can fix it that way.
The answer is, like everything else in life, work at it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no other way to do it. You know, I mean, like Herb Jones. I mean, Herb Jones was the best rebounder in the Metro Conference, and he was 6'3". But every time that ball came off the rim, he was there. And I mean, these guys are a little different. You know, when I had like Danny, I could tell Danny, if you don't average 14 rebounds a game, you're not going to be a first round pick. He'd be fighting our guys for him. You know, so you know it's you got to figure out what buttons to push as well.